Let's talk about the sounds that a Rolex makes during day-to-day wear and how that affects the overall experience of wearing it. We talk about the looks and design with the amazing dials and colors, and we talk about the feel on the wrist with its reassuring heft and substance on the wrist. But the third major sense after sight and touch is hearing, which also factors into how enjoyable it is to wear a Rolex. It's difficult to come across on video, but I'll try to record the differences in the sounds of some of the various Rolex models. My equipment today is the Rode microphone attached to the Leica SL2S. The major differences in the sounds that a Rolex makes is between the modern and pre-modern Rolex. So I'll compare this pre-modern Explorer to a modern Oyster Perpetual, and this pre-ceramic Submariner Date to this ceramic Sea Dweller 43, specifically the bracelets, clasp, and bezel. And the sweetest action that comes from Rolex is this exquisite bezel action of the Sea Dweller 43, so I'll save that for last. With picking up and putting down the watch, the main sound you hear comes from the bracelet. Both of these are solid end-link Oyster bracelets, but the main sound difference comes from the hollow center links on the Explorer. The older bracelets make a sort of jingling or rattling sound coming from the bracelet. It's not only due to the bracelet stretch, but it's just the metal pieces striking each other and producing a tinny sound from the hollow center links, causing some sort of echoing effect. But with the solid center links on the modern Oyster Perpetual, even shaking it around gives you a much more solid, muted sound coming from it, and it feels much more reassuring that you have a strong bracelet holding the watch to your wrist. So recently I've been liking these modern solid link bracelets much more, and I'm getting more annoyed with the older fragile sounding hollow link bracelets. You could say that pre-ceramics have more character and they feel lighter on the wrist, but the modern bracelets sound so much more substantial, and it sounds like a much better build quality. Actually closing it onto the wrist, the next sound you notice is the click of the clasp as it snaps shut. And here on the pre-modern Oyster Lock clasp, it sounds like a crisp click. And on the modern Oyster Perpetual Oyster clasp, this produces a slightly softer snick type of sound. Finally, on the ceramic sports Rolex, they made a lot of improvements on the bezel function, and that also comes across in the way that it sounds. On the pre-ceramic Submariner Date, part of it comes down to the aging of the bezel. Over time it becomes stiffer and more difficult to rotate, but even when new, the basic sounds are still different. The pre-ceramics are more subdued and quieter in bezel turning, and with the stiffness of the bezel, I'm finding I need to grip down tighter on the bezel to make it turn while pushing downward at the same time. But on this 2019 Sea Dweller 43, turning the bezel is super satisfying, not only to the touch, but the way it sounds. The teeth around the bezel are deeper and sharper, so it's so much easier to grip and easier to turn with just the right resistance. You just have to let the teeth get a grip on the skin of your fingers, rather than trying to bite your fingers into the bezel. And that same sensation translates into the deeper, more satisfying clicking sounds as you turn the bezel, and it sounds much more precise and easier to hear with more feedback, and it feels so much more well made. This bezel action on the Sea Dweller 43 is the best I've seen on any Rolex, including the modern and pre-modern Submariner. In closing, there's two more sounds I'll mention. On my Sea Dweller 43 and Explorer 2, for the first 6 or 12 months, I heard a very soft, tiny squeaking sound from the bracelet, but that was just breaking in, and eventually it disappeared. And on the Sea Dweller 43, if you hold it close to your ear and shake it, you can hear the sound of the self-winding rotor as it moves. It's a very subtle sound. It doesn't bother me at all, and I really don't notice it during day-to-day wear. So that's my look at the sounds of Rolex. Let me know in the comments what your favorite sound is and what your least favorite sound is. For me, I'm not liking the rattling bracelet of this old Explorer 1, so I'm hoping to replace it with a new Explorer 36mm. Let me know in the comments what other videos you'd like to see, and thanks for watching.